Right, welcome back. We're diving into the low carb, high fat diet. How does that work? But let's just recap a little bit. Low carb, high fat diet, because the carbs are the thing that have created all the trouble in the past. We had a high carb, low fat diet up until now, and we're advocating that it should be a low carb, high fat diet because you don't want the roller coaster effect. You want the moderate effect of proteins and saturated fats. Now, what is a carb? Everybody, there's a buzzword. Let's go onto the carb diet, on the low carb diet, the high carb diet. What is a carb? What is a carbohydrate? Carb stands for carbohydrate. And what is a carbohydrate? If you take a bowl of sugar and you start stringing together all those little bits of sugar, those little refined sucrose and fructose, and you get a long string of it, that's a carb. That's a carbohydrate, basically. And the string in its different forms can also be a starch. So starches, sugars, and carbohydrates are the same thing. To the body, they are at the end of the day glucose, because if you take a starch in or you take any carbohydrate in, the body chops it up into its finest form, into the form of glucose, and you get the glucose bolus that we spoke about. And that's the one we're trying to avoid. Right, so if we're going to divide this diet into two columns, like one always does, an avoid column and a have column. Now, I use the term avoid because it's really difficult to be hard and fast about diet. I mean, you're going to get a little bit in of these things. It's not a problem, but you must know, you must actually be avoiding this. So when you look at your plate, you've got this idea in your head that you know exactly what to avoid in the plate and what to have. Now, the avoid section is easy to remember. You must first switch off your GPS. Switch off your GPS. Now, the F of first stands for fruit juice and fruit. Fruit juice especially is a big no-no because it's just one big bolus of sugar. It has some nutrients in it, it has some vitamins in it, it's true, but it's nature's candy that has been chopped up and all the fiber removed in the form of fruit juice. So fruit juice is really a silly thing to have. Don't have fruit juice at all. Fruit, there are some nutrients and there are some good things in fruit, no problem, but they're wrapped in sugar. So it's nature's candy. You're taking candy off of the tree and having that. The value of fruit is relatively overrated. That an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Your grandmother said you must have fruit. Your mother said you must have fruit. Unfortunately, relatively overrated. Just to give you an example, to a diabetic, one average size banana is equal to a whole slab of chocolates, equal in sugar to a whole slab of chocolates. Crazy statistic. So I can hear you saying, well, then I'd rather have the slab of chocolates. But I sort of agree with that. If it's going to be dark chocolate, then it's going to be with good quality nuts mixed in there. Probably better for you than the fruit, because it's just too much sugar, massive amounts of sugar in the form of fructose, and your body doesn't even enjoy fructose as much as it does sucrose. So fruits are out. G, what does that stand for? That stands for grain. Now, the most important, all the grains are actually out, to be honest, but the most important grain to really throw away is wheat and wheat products. So bread is your big killer there. Bread is the killer. Bread is bad for you. Bread is bad for you. Bread is out. Okay. So just to give you an example, one slice of white bread is equal to 3.7 teaspoons of sugar. 3.7 teaspoons of sugar. Now you say to me, well, I don't eat white bread. I eat full grain, super duper, whole grain, low GI. You can only buy it at a health shop for twice the price type of bread. That's all I ever eat. Now, you know what the sugar content of that slice is? 3 teaspoons of sugar. So please, people, don't be misled by the media and by the food producers. Bread is by its very nature not good for you at all. It needs to go. Along with that, pasta probably also needs to go, to be honest. the maize products, pop and corn syrups and corn products are also out. They really are just boluses of sugar with very little nutrient value. Rice, of all of these, is probably the one you can sort of get away with, and then brown rice is probably the better one of the two because it's got a bit of roughage in it. It's a whole food, it hasn't been processed, so whole foods are always better than processed foods. So if you have to go and have some other grain, rice is probably the way to go, but very much less and brown, and certainly not the mainstay of what you do. P stands for, the P of GPS stands for potatoes. Potatoes. They are the representative of all the vegetables that grow below the ground. So all the vegetables that grow below the ground are out because they are the rhizomes, or they are the stores of the plant, and they store, like we do, they store their extra energy in the form of sugars, and that sugar is in the form of a starch. And all that you do is when you're eating that, your body just sees this long string of sugar, chops it up into its fine form of glucose. So starch is equals sugar. There are some exceptions, maybe a bit of onions with your food and so on. No problem, that's why I say, but avoid the vegetables that grow below the ground as much as you can. Then, of course, S of GPS stands for sugar, the white stuff that's in the bowl that everybody says they don't have. Sure, that must go, obviously. Sugar is fructose and sucrose, and you must avoid that. Right, so you've got it. You must first switch off your GPS. That you must do. Now you're saying to me, what can I eat? This sounds like everything I always eat. No, there's a massive amount that you can have, and have it wonderfully prepared and very nice. So the way to remember this, interesting way, is you must buy yourself a vape. Buy yourself a vape. In other words, the B of buy yourself a vape is butter. You must have butter, the real thing, old-fashioned butter, salted old-fashioned butter. No margarine. Margarine is that far from a plastic. And no oil, because oil is made from seeds or corn, and therefore are just a big bolus of carbohydrates, and therefore also no deep fried food. No deep fried food at all, especially if it's in corn or in sunflower oil. Right, the V of vape stands for veggies. Obviously the veggies that you must have, those that grow above the ground, the ones that you didn't like as a child, the green leafy vegetables, the spinaches, the broccolis, and the Brussels sprouts, and. Okay. The A of vape stands for avo, and we add nuts and cheese to that. Avo is a very good whole food. Definitely can use the avo. It's one of the fruits that you're allowed to use. When I say you're not allowed to have fruits, avo is a fruit, and it's one of the fruits that you're allowed to have, along with coconut and berries. But so avo is a good one. Nuts, unfortunately, the expensive ones, the ones that grow above the ground, the cashews and the walnuts and macadamians. Cashews, to a degree, cashews are just, be careful of binging on cashews, but certainly not peanuts, because peanuts are actually ground nuts. They grow below the ground. They fall on the other side along with potatoes. Cheese, I would say, rather than milk, because cheese sort of ferments out some of the lactose, because lactose is the thing that we're intolerant to, and lactose is the thing that gives you the carbohydrate bolus. Our problem with milk is that it has lactose in it. So if you're going to have milk, then you must at least have full cream milk, and not low-fat milk, and not low-fat products, because I'm after the fats, and I sort of tolerate the lactose if you now have to have milk products, and there's some calcium and things that come through. So no low-fat anything, please, because that means all the fats have been removed, which is what I want, and they've added carbohydrates to make it palatable. So there you go. And then the P of buy yourself a vape is proteins. Proteins, of course, very important to our diet. And the most important ones are fish, Fish, especially fatty fish is very good for you. Chicken obviously is very good for you. Meat, even red meat with a little bit of fat, with saturated fat. Grain-fed beef is always better than the processed stuff. All the proteins, try and not go for the processed stuff. Stay away from the processed stuff. If you can recognize it, you can eat it. If it comes out of a tin, it's probably more processed, has all sorts of carbohydrates in it. And then the E of buy yourself a vape stands for eggs. Eggs, what a wonderful whole food. Brilliant. It was designed to sustain life of the newborn chick for at least 20 days or 21 days, or whatever the species, or even 40 days in some species. So eggs that we eat, good for you. Good whole food. It has all the nutrients in it. It has a wonderful source of most of the nutrients that you need. So eggs, relatively underrated as a wonderful whole food. Now, just to give you a small example, just to bring it home. In a restaurant, you normally sit and you look at the breakfast menu, and there's always a health breakfast as one of the sections. And you look at the health breakfast, and the health breakfast normally consists of full grain muesli with some low-fat strawberry yogurt, a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, 2 slices of full grain or whole grain bread with margarine. This is now your health breakfast, and you think, oh, I'm going to have that. I'm going to be healthy. That's crazy, because it's just one big bolus of carbohydrates. It's just not a healthy breakfast at all. What is a healthy breakfast? 2 eggs and a smiley face made with a rasher of bacon. High protein, high fat. That's what we want to get. No bread, of course, with that, and water or black bitter coffee and tea with your breakfast. Good breakfast, bad breakfast. Actually, the other way around now, eh? So that's where we need to go. All right, I just want a quick little word on milk. Milk, in my opinion, is relatively overrated. I think we're all a little bit lactose intolerant, all of us. And normally, if there's allergies, you cut the milk out, the allergies go. So milk is a good starting point. Why? Because what other primate suckles on a herbivore? No other primate does that. I mean, in fact, if David Attenborough had to make a program on a primate that he found in Upper Gulf Bulawayo somewhere, that crawls out and goes and lies under an ungulate or lies under a herbivore and suckles on their milk, you would be grossed out by that. You would say, whoa, it's just in Upper Gulf Bulawayo that this can happen. We do it on a daily basis. We do it. It's a mega industry. How can we even think that is good food for you? Yes, we justify it with all the things, but then what we do is we take out the saturated fat and give you a low-fat milk, and we leave the lactose. No, it's crazy behavior. So milk, relatively overrated. Once you ferment it and you take some of the lactose away, then the cheese becomes a little bit more acceptable, and then you can get all the nutrient value that you need, the fats and the nutrients. That's milk. The second thing is wheat. Wheat, we must really understand that gluten is a polypeptide. It's the thing that actually binds stuff. That's why you find wheat in everything, because in any processed food there's massive amounts of it, because it binds it. It makes it nice. It gives it shelf life, and it's just good stuff for the food industry. But the problem with gluten is we all also are a little bit gluten intolerant, because gluten is a polypeptide that we don't recognize, and we don't have a fermenting section to our gut. Not a very good one anyway, and it just can't break it down. So it tolerates it and switches on the immune system to fight this foreign thing that's lying around there. So if we keep eating wheat products all the time, we're always switching on our immune system, and we don't want our immune system switched on all the time, because that creates all the trouble. So gluten, bad for you. Wheat out, bread out. Okay. Now you're all shouting at me. I can hear it. What about cholesterol? Cholesterol is going to kill us. We're all going to, on this diet of yours, we are all going to die of heart attacks. How dare you say this? How dare you say this to us? To quote someone, so cholesterol, we need to dismantle cholesterol a little bit, and that's a very interesting topic. So that's the topic for our next video. Join me there, and I will dismantle some of the myths and around cholesterol and give you some food for thought.